Hello, Internet. Welcome to the third episode of Solace in Cinema's podcast or discussion series. You can visit us at solaceincinemas.com or Instagram, Twitter, and other social media. So, before we start this show, let me put a disclaimer that this is not a review forum or any sort of. We are not critics. We are not trying to, bash some movie or trying to tell you that you should watch this and that. This is just Solace in cinemas is just a vessel to pour our love and our thoughts and what we feel or any form of movies, shows or cinematic mediums that we really love or that you might love. And of course you're welcome to share your thoughts on whatever we discuss or your disagreement, agreement, whatever you feel about it. So since we have gotten this out of the way, today will be a different episode because I'll be talking alone. And as you can see from the title, we'll be talking about none other than one of, if not one of the best, one of one of the movie that is really important to me, and something. It's a movie that I think I'll be revisiting from time to time. It's that sort of movie. Uh, it's like a movie that you can find solace in because it's more than a movie. It's an experience, and the movie is none other than Burning. And Burning, this movie is a South Korean movie. For those who haven't watched it, and if you haven't watched it, I don't know why you're on this podcast and why you're listening to this. But I hope that even if you haven't, I can convince you to watch it. So it's a South Korean movie directed by this is like very thought-provoking director called Lee Chang-Dong. I hope I'm pronouncing this name right because my first language is in Korean or English. So Lee Chang-Dong, of course, is among the best director from South Korea, and I think best among the finest director we have, living director right now. I mean, there are other really good directors, but for me personally, he stands out among top seven because his movies are simple. For me, his movies are like medicine or something. I can just keep on watching, and it's just my kind of. He just makes my kind of movies. The movies that talk about life, the human condition, the emotion, and this gap between individual and the society, and like outsiders, and of course nostalgia, and a lot of things that you can explain in life, and some things you can. His movies are more about questioning than answering, and it is an atmosphere, it's an experience. And if you have watched Lee Chang Dong's movies such as Green Fish, Secret Sunshine, and Green Fish, Secret Sunshine, of course Peppermint Candy, Poetry, those are among the best movies of South Korea, and of course among good movies. I mean, if you like that kind of movies that are very contemplative, very thoughtful, or as some people might call it, dark or depressing, something like that. And Burning is among one of those movies, but it's like in terms of genre shift, it's that movie. In a rudimentary level from the outside, viewers it traps the viewers into thinking that it's kind of a suspense thriller kind of Hitchcock kind of movie, or some kind of thriller where there are answers, but actually it isn't. It's just different kind of movie. It's like a, how do I say this, it's a very mysterious movie. In just one word, it's mystery. It's about life. It's about the clues and all the ambiguous part of life that this character comes across. And there isn't really much of a conclusion, and I think every audience can leave their own sort of conclusion after watching Burning. So yeah, of course I'll be talking about Burning, but before I talk about in depth about what I feel about the movie, and certain my kind of interpretation or what I my takeaways from it. Let me just uh, tell about the plot of this movie in this surface level, just so you know, me and you, the listeners, are on the same track in terms of plot. So the film stars like three main lead characters, and one of them is played by Steven Yeun from Walking Dead. Of course, he gained the mainstream attention from success from The Walking Dead. He's I think originally now an American, but his roots lies in South Korea. And it was a breakout movie for Yoo In and Jeon Jong Seo. Jeon Jong Seo is one of my personal Korean favorite Korean actress. She's really talented, and she has a different kind of look. I think she's among the Korean actresses that I really like, and I want to see more of. Of course, now she has been good projects coming these days, such as the remake of The Money Heist and The Call, and I think some European movies that flopped. One I don't remember the name, and UIN, of course. UIN. I'm sorry. I hope I'm trying to pronounce it right. UIN. He starred in. He recently made acted in a new Netflix series, Hellbound. That was really good. So about religion, he plays like the cult member, leader of a cult, and a kind of a psychotic person. It was really good. So let's not dive into that now, of course. So yeah, this movie starts with this character called Lee that UIN plays. So he's just a normal guy, a recent graduate and working part time as a delivery guy. And suddenly, just right at the first of the movie, he comes across this girl who happens to be his neighbor from his childhood place and played by Jin Jong Seo. So they both meet, they have good time, and they have casual sex. They are not in relationship, but then what happens is that this character played by Jun is a character that you might come across in your surroundings or you might not. But I think she's something you will find across. She's very moody, and she has very deep void, existential void, or kind of a inside of her. So I think all the dialogues, the states, the stuff he says about pantomime and the hunger, the great hunger of this tribe in Africa, that was really a nice one. I think it's a very important part of the movie. So we'll talk about it later. But of course, the two meet, and then she goes to a trip in Africa, and Lee has to deal, and back in South Korea, Lee has to deal with his father's mess because he gets into trouble with the law. One officer, he probably hits him, and he's left alone. And then this lead character is left alone to look after his father's farm. And there's this small cow. I don't know what do I call it. And he's trying to write something. I think this is also a very important part in this movie. He's trying to write a novel because he's a graduate in creative writing, but he spends most of his days trying to write, but he can't come up with anything. So he's kind of like unemployed at this point. So what happens is that uh, Sin returns the girl from Africa, but with Ben, played by Steven Yeun. And then right from this point, uh, the lead character he's very suspicious about Ben because Ben is then the other mysterious guy. There are very mysterious characters in this movie, Ben, and of course she gets into relationship with Ben. They spend some good time, and Yu is very cautious. He doesn't want her to. He wants her to question about Ben because Ben is like this great Gatsby kind of like he's a very rich guy, but they don't know where all his money comes from, and he doesn't really have motive as well. And I think the character that Stephen Yeun plays in this movie is very suitable for him because he plays this. Sometimes you feel like maybe he's a killer or he has some motives. Just the look in his eyes, like you never know what's going inside his head. But in the case of Sin, it's very different. The girl, because she's very, she has a very lot of issues inside of her. She's just like about the meaning of life or identity, and she usually talks about this thing called the Great Hunger, which I found very fascinating and relatable because this she says there's this tribe in Africa, and for them there's two kind. There are two kinds of hunger. One hunger is you literally feel hungry, and then another kind of hunger is that there's this great. They call it the Great Hunger, and this great hunger stems from this knack for life. It's like the meaning of life, why we're here, our place in this universe. These sort of questions that that a person deals with, and this the African tribe considered to be the greatest hunger. So yeah, and in this movie, it's very metaphoric and thematic. It's, it relates in the sense of this movie, and the whole movie reeks of this quote that our character June makes to us the first half of the movie. So yeah, what happens in the plot is that Sin immediately disappears. All of a sudden, she disappears after this very hypnotic dance. There's this point in the movie. Those who have seen it, they know. In the golden hour, she just dance after smoking weed, and I think that dance is, of course, the her retelling of the Great Hunger because she cries after the dance, and it's a very beautiful shot in the movie. And even if you come across any interview of Lee Chang-Dong, uh, he has really said that those moments of the movie were very important for him. That defined the movie, the dance, and it's even included in the official poster. Uh, the evening dance she does half naked, and what I suggest to any of those who haven't watched the movie is that if you have if you feel like watching the movie, please don't miss out on those moments, especially like since we watch from tablets and Netflix these days, we have we tend to fast forward it at times when it's boring. But please keep patience, and I think it's a nice experience that you'll have while watching this movie. So yeah, she disappears all of a sudden. I mean, she leaves. Whether she died, there's no answer. But then our character Lee has this great hunger inside of him now. That where has she gone? Did Ben kill her? Was she kidnapped? Uh, is he like a killer? But he can't make sense of anything because now I realize that Sin, the girl, is like a unreliable part of not really a narrator, but an unreliable character as well. Because a lot of the things she says is very dramatic, but at the same time unreliable. Such as uh, at first she tells that she only talked to you just once while she was a child, and he said she was ugly. But then when they meet for the last time in the barn, she says that uh, she fell in a well and there was no one came to pick her up, and you came to pick her up. Uh, I mean, from the well, like her life was saved by you. But while in fact we don't know if there was a well or not uh, in the place where they grew up. So yeah, so at the end of the movie, it's just we take the audience step into this character use shoes because we feel the same way. Where is the goal? But I think that's the interesting thing about watching movies. It depends on the kind of person that's watching it. For some, it's mystery. They want to find the clue what happened to the girl character. But then there are some who just find it like it's a very meditative kind of feel this movie has. And the shots in this movie, the music, and the whole vibe around it. And towards the end, you kills Ben, of course, but there isn't an answer because at the end, Ben hugs you while he stabs him, and then he takes off his shirt, throws it in the car, and just goes away. But there is still no answer whether Ben June's sudden disappearance had something to do with Ben or not. We never know. But I think this wasn't really the point of the movie, and it was confirmed when I came across the interview of the director as well. So yeah, I just since I cleared out the plot, I mean from my perspective, I'll just talk about. I have some points written here since I don't really want to miss out on any of the points. I don't know, like if there are viewers, listeners out here who agree with me or not, just leave it in the comments and tell me. But here is what the mystery in Burning and what this movie, my thoughts on Burning. So right away, first and foremost, Burning is a cinematic experience. That's what I feel, and that's what the director was trying to convey as well. That's what I feel is my opinion, of course. It is an experience. It's a very different kind of beautiful experience. Beautiful, not in a way that is very positive, good ending, or something right out of a musical Disney movie. But it's beautiful because it's different. It doesn't conventional. It doesn't follow this conventional form of storytelling where there's this first act, third act, ending with some conclusion towards the end. It doesn't really have a conclusion, but it's a long movie. It's like 2 hour and 15 minutes or more, but it doesn't feel like it because you just get swept away in this tide, this experience that these filmmakers have been able to create. It's worth our watch. And another thing is that uh, I think it's I don't really know about art. I think not really everybody knows, but although we don't know what really a good art or great art is, we know what we like. So for me, Burning was this kind of movie which is an art. It's artistic, not in Banksy kind of way, artistic or whatever, but it's an art, and it's a very beautiful movie because it doesn't try to give answer and try to live up to audience expectation, but it just brings so much questions in the movie, and most of the questions are very existential and the different form, and it's very relevant to I think any of the people that watch it. Although it's made, of course, from the short story of Haruki Murakami. I have only read his Men Without Women, that short story. Murakami's Barn Burning. He made it from the Japanese short story, but since it's a very short story, the barn burning has is a very thematic thing. The pantomime, of course. So yeah, it's the question that this movie points out. So before, let me just go through the key points. So yeah, the first thing that's very important. If you are trying to look back at the movies, you can't forget about this moment when they meet. Our character Jion and Yo meet. Yo and Jion Jong Shio. Jion, this character Lee and Sin. So when this, I'm sorry, I don't really know the name of the character or the real name of the actress. So I'll just say that Lee and Shin Hye Mi, yeah, these two meet, and she talks about this thing called pantomime. She pretends to eat this fruit, although there isn't one. Is there this art called pantomime? So she says she has been practicing this craft called pantomime, right? And then it is craft of just doing something by pretending it's there. But she tells Lee that the secret to mastering the craft of pantomime is that you have to pretend the thing is there or isn't. You have to pretend that the thing is there. You have to think, believe, make yourself believe that the thing is there, and you start believing that it starts to exist for you. So in her case, I think she lives this. Um, I think this steers. This is in a way very thematic for the movie, and why it's really, this was very suitable. This was included in the short story as well. I hope I'm making sense. I'm probably, I probably am not making sense, but anyway, she tells that the pantomime, to master this craft of pantomime, you have to you should stop thinking there isn't one. You just have to accept that there is, and the thing starts to exist. And in this case, in her case, she gives Lee the task of watching after feeding her cat. But we never really know if the cat is there. This cat named Boyle in her apartment. While she goes to Africa, Lee comes to visit at her apartment to give the cat the food, but he never really sees it. But it in a way becomes my theory or feeling is that there never really was a cat named Boyle. Or maybe there was, but I feel there isn't. It was just that Sin was playing with him. Sin wanted him to practice this art of pantomime because Lee, by the end of the movie, had already believed that the cat he saw at the Ben's apartment was Boyle, in fact, because just when he says Boyle, the cat comes to his arm, and I think this was a great factor that made him decide to kill Ben. But there were other factors as well, and the pantomime works in a very metaphor. This dialogue at the first about pantomime, of course, works in a great deal because it leads up to certain events in the movie. So I think the pantomime was a very important aspect when our character Sin says it to Lee. And then there's this mother's reappearance because, as we know, Lee has been. Lee's mother left him when he was still a child due to his father's anger management issue and all those sort of issues. But the thing is that when his mother left, she came back only after she had debts on her head. She had a lot of debt. So she tried to call him. But when though everyone, even Sin's family tells him that there wasn't a will, and the scene was just dramatic, and there was not really a will, and she didn't really fall into a well. Lee starts to believe her, and that maybe she really ran away due to her credit card loans. She just disappeared. And I don't know if you remember this. There's this one point in the movie where Sin says that she just wants to disappear. I just wish I could disappear. And I think she really wanted to disappear. So she went somewhere or she committed suicide to make the matters worse. But the mother's reappearance in Lee's life was another factor that motivated him to kill Ben, because due to her, uh, he kind of gave another thought that maybe Sin wasn't lying. And when someone that suddenly comes back into your life, for Lee, of course, his mother, whom he really loves now, because he's happy to see her back because his father is already in jail now by that point in the movie. So yeah, it's life in a way, because in life as well there are many factors that contribute to one simple act as well. So in the case of Lee's act at the climax of the movie, his mother's reappearance was a very important one. And I don't think he's a very smart character, and he was intended to be a very clueless character. He didn't really have clue about anything. He was just in awe about all the mystery and all the things happening around him. Then there's this another thing called, and all the people are saying that maybe Ben killed. There are some theories in the internet that Ben killed Shin. I don't think he did, because at the end of the movie, when Lee just stabs Ben in near his car, he goes to hug him, and he's very surprised to find out why he stabbed him. Maybe he knew that he was suspicious. Lee was suspicious of him, but he was a very friendly person, and he dies with a great hunger, not knowing what made Lee decide to commit such an act against him, and just the sheer expression in his eyes. And he hugs him towards the end. I don't know. I think it was hug. I don't think it was him fighting to get rid of Lee, because Steven's character just hugs Lee towards the end. I mean, that's how I saw it. So I think this movement made Lee realize at the end that this act too just gave rise to another mystery, because then Ben wasn't responsible, and he just there's this another great hunger that lingered in, of course, Lee's life now, because he had this big suspicion on Ben that maybe he was responsible, and but there is also another factor I think that made him want to kill Ben. The social, the economical difference between them, the socio-economical, because of course Lee comes from very, mm, what can I say, um, middle class background, whereas Ben has a different lifestyle. He has the money, the kind of social life he leads, whereas Lee's life is a very isolated one with a lot of issues, and he's dealing with the with the stuff that he doesn't really have to deal with. It's just passed down by his father, so that's kind of fucked up for him. So I think that kind of jealousy, that maybe Lee just felt that Ben, the kind of economic background that he came from, he felt it was unfair that Ben didn't have to live with the consequences, because he secretly felt he had something to do with uh, Sin's disappearance. And maybe this was the factor too that led to his act of, killing him with a knife. And there's this another thing, listlessness, inui, this emptiness, or because he's an unemployed youth by that point, and just living out in his father's farm. He kills him with the knife that his father has saved, like the collection of knives, and he doesn't know what the heck is happening around him. He has this great mystery. The thing about the barn burning, this Ben's desire to, this unexplained desire to burn the barn. Maybe it has something to. It was kind of metaphoric in a way that the barn burning was a metaphor for something, another kind of sacrifice. Some, but I think, but to be honest, I feel that the people associated with this movie, including Lee Chang-Dong, they intentionally kept this thriller aspect, this suspense, this murder kind of aspect, to just lure the audience while maintaining the signature of this director. who has this history of making these deep movies. Because without this, the audience can't hang on to them. This is something that keeps the audience on the seat, of course. So for me, the barn burning is it feels like a metaphor that made Lee feel that Ben is kind of a serial killer, and he's just talking in how do you say, talking in metaphoric ways, saying that he's about to do something grand, and like that's when Sin disappears. So maybe he killed Sin, and the barn burning has something to do with the trying to destroy the. Uh, of course, I didn't came up with these thoughts, but when I watched this Q&A of the director at some film festival in YouTube, he talked about the barn burning something like scene. Ben wants to destroy something, and the environment they are in, they want to get out of that environment. And for Lee, the burning of the barn represents something like he wants to get away from the place, like get away from his father's place. He wants to burn his father's place and the space he is in. Yeah, he talks about the space. But Ben is very mysterious. I can really wrap my head around this character. Maybe it was just meant to be that way, this character. So, yeah. And the other thing is, of course, uh, Lee's really in love with Shin, this girl, our leading character Sin, the girl who vanishes, because he's totally in love with her, and he even says it while he's high on pot at the barn moment in the barn. And he doesn't really trust Ben with her as well. So I think that jealousy also made him want to kill Ben, and moreover, it just came to my mind. It is immense desire to just see her again, that he really wanted to see Sin, because she suddenly vanishes. It's like you just lose someone that you really really love and you really thought had a connection with. And he and there are some scenes in the movie that I think says the point that really visually shows, like towards the end of the movie, uh, you can see Lee touching himself at his isolated at his barn, and he dreams of Sin just jerking him off. I mean, giving him the gratification by like cuddling with him, but it's all just a dream. And I think that this shot in the movie was to show this big kind of longing he has for Sin, and how much he wants Sin to reappear in his life. Of course, it's shown in a very sexual way, but I think it's more than that. Yeah, yeah, that thing, of course. This big desire to see and to see Sin come back into his life. And I think she went away because of that moment in Ban where he's not okay with her dancing half naked. And he says something very demeaning to him, and maybe she feels very bad about it, and she didn't find happiness. But Sin is a very fascinating character as well, because Sin is very, very existential. She's something you can relate to, something who has a lot going out in her head. She doesn't know like what she wants to do, why she's here. I mean, we all have that phase. But yeah, I think she disappeared most because of the loan she had, and her just longing to vanish away. Like, this kind of, how do you say it? This thought that maybe a new place and new surroundings will bring a new change into your life, and maybe that's why she went somewhere else, maybe Africa again. And then, of course, I talk about the economic gap. Yeah, this movie really nicely shows the socio-economic gap between these characters who are of the same age. Because if you look at Ben, he has a really amazing social life where he hangs out with his friends in some expensive cafes, discos, and he has nothing to worry about. Like he's very less empathetic as well. Like even at one point in the movie, I think at first he said Ben says he doesn't know how to cry. He can't remember crying at all. Like he hasn't dealt with this kind of issues. So this gap within them contributes to this jealousy as well. I mean, it's my thoughts as well. It's just my opinion. I don't know. Maybe it had something to do with it. Um, and then another thing to note is that our main guy Lee doesn't really have a purpose. Like he doesn't really know what he's doing in his life. He hasn't started his novel as well, and he even says that to Ben that he doesn't know what he wants to write about, because to him life is a big mystery. And I think it's another big important statement in the movie, because life indeed is a mystery for this guy and even for the audience in this world that Lee Chang-Dong is trying to show us. Everything is mystery in this movie, because most of the people in this movie are youth, the characters, and none of them are striving towards anything, their ambition, whatever. They are just floating, but they are dealing with the issues that they really don't know. Like they're dealing with the problems that they aren't sure about. They know the problem, what the problem is, but they are not really sure about what the problem is as well. They know that there is a problem, and like they don't know what they're trying to fight against. And this statement isn't, of course, from me, because it's from Lee Chang-dong himself. And I'll just read out what is said about the movie from after the translated version as well about the movie. It says that Lee Chang-dong says that youth have a feeling that they don't have a collective purpose to strive towards. Also, they think they know there is a problem, but they aren't really sure what the problem is. There is still a huge socioeconomic gap than ever before, and youth don't know what they are fighting against. And when I read this, it resonated more for me, and I think it will to many as well, because that's how the condition of the world is today, especially for youth, because it's everything is changing so rapidly. Like sometimes it's very hard to make sense of things, like what you're trying to do, what is right, what is not, and there's this big duality that the youth face. And there's another thing that the director points out, that there's this problem, that the issue that we are facing, most of the issue we are facing aren't our own responsibilities, but inherited from the generation before them, that the youth are facing. And in the movie, it's portrayed portrayed with the help of the Ban and the North and South Korean divide. The environment around them, and yeah, that's true. And what I love about this statement is that because Lee Chang-dong is a very old director by now. He's, I think, above 60, and I love the way that he has this kind of empathy towards the youth. It's not very critical as well. I think it's very empathetic. He feels the issue that he feels the internal issues, of course. He's more even in the Green is debut movie Greenfish. He shows how this character is trying to struggle in the face of the changes after he comes out of jail, because the countryside he grew up in is starting to change into town, and there's this big buildings, and there's this search for a job. The economic it's very economically challenging, but at the same time he has to deal with his family issues within his family. And in Burning it's no different, because our character Lee is dealing with a lot of things. He has He's unemployed. He doesn't know what to do with his life. He's trying to write a novel. He doesn't know what to write about. But of course, like to write something, you have to believe in something. But he doesn't know what to write about, because of course, it's very absurd for him, and even as an audience, you feel this absurdness lingering with you within the movie. So what I love, so I love the way that mm, Lee Chang-dong was able to be so, he was sorry for the youth today, because not in a way that someone chuckles or feels like these youth aren't good enough, but I'm glad that he has this kind of sense that there are a lot of issues that the youth face today that are not, that are these problems they inherited from their forefathers or the generation before them, and they are dealing with it. If even if it's some economic issues or all the family issues, I mean, you'll get it. It's very, especially if you have been like involved in your family issues or all the stuffs with your dad and mom, it will resonate. And there is, of course, they have no, as the director points out, there is no collective purpose that the youth. Yeah, so I'll come to the. I think the main vibe. How do I say this? I can find the right words. Hmm. Okay, now I have the words. So I feel that what Lee Chang Dong is trying to give a sense of from this movie Burning is that he feels a great empathy towards the youth and the world today and the youth that live in this world right now, because they don't feel like they have this collective purpose, and they are not really sure about a lot of things. And it isn't easy. Even he says that if you look at his interview, he talks about how the purpose was very clear in the past. There's this collective purpose, like you have to bring down the inequality or the tyranny, dictatorship, or whatever freedom. But now the issues are very vague. We don't really know what we're striving or fighting against. We know there's a problem, lot of problem, but we don't really know, because everything is fucking changing so rapidly. And I think it's this movie is kind of a letter by the this amazing director Lee Chang-dong about the condition today. And I think these characters he created in this movie are just some sample who are kind of lost. Yeah, lost would be the right word. These are very lost character, and I think this movie is a big empathetic statement from Lee Chang-dong. It's a cinematic experience, of course, but something that someone can take their own resolution from. I mean, not resolution, something own conclusion. Well, I can't say like this is how someone should watch a movie or that's the theme of the movie. But what I really feel strongly is that this isn't a movie that you should try to dissect like some sort of Marvel movies, like sorry, like the Easter eggs you missed in the movie, those kind of videos. It isn't. I think that would be that would be like missing the whole point of the movie. It was never about finding the clues and coming up with theories, fan theories, or whatever. I think it was an experience. This movie is an experience. It's a movie to be experienced, seen, to be felt, because something lingers after you watch the movie. It stays with you, and I think that's what good movies and good stuffs, visual medium, all sort of good movies, shows, songs, they just stay with you, and you just like to revisit them again and again. There's something about it you can't explain. I mean, even I, I really don't know. And every time I try to revisit the movie, there's something I take away from it, or something I just like had to think back again. But it's a good movie, and it's another example that Lee Chang Dong is among the best directors living right now. And I just hope as a viewer who loves his movie that he comes up with movies like this, and I hope he stays. He carries this signature with him, his style, his school of thoughts in his movies. that I hope he doesn't compromise. And and as an audience, I feel so good to come across movies like Burning. And next time we'll be talking about Secret Sunshine, of course. Oh yeah, another thing. Like at the end, our character Lee gets naked. He's naked. Is totally naked, and that this scene really didn't matter to me when I watched the movie for the first time. I thought he just took away his shirt because there were bloodstains of Ben on him. But he gets completely naked. He just fucking takes away all his clothes, bare, with his balls hanging out, and just gets in the truck and leaves. And the sense of mystery and these burning questions just continues. He just becomes like those tribe of the Great Kalahari Desert, like our character Sin says at the first of the movie. This great hunger still lingers in Ben. Yeah, of course Ben and then Lee. I'm trying to say Lee. Uh, but yeah, I mean it's really hard to put like this kind of existential, life philosophical sort of because it doesn't really make sense. And maybe it's not worth it to make sense of stuffs in movies about life through some scripts. I think it's good that good art answers questions more, and it comforts the disturbed. That's what art is. Like this, like the saying goes, art comforts, art disturbs those that are comfortable, and it comforts those that are disturbed. And Burning is among those art. To each his own movie. For me, I have my own thoughts on this. Some thoughts I was able to explain in it. Something I can't. Something. It's a movie that will stay with me, of course. It's a good movie. Something that's very important to me. Something I can revisit. Something I can find solace in. that's why this. That's why we call it solace in cinemas, because we talk about the stuffs that we find solace in. It's like a comfort pillow. Good movies, and I think most viewers will agree that good movies are like really comfortable pillows that you can just, even if you had a trouble someday or a lot of stuff's going inside of you, you can just watch sometime and feel like how do you say, a comforting pillow. You just rest your head on it, and you're just happy that it's there, and like some part of it speaks to you, like some things that you felt only you understood, like you felt. It's just like a great book. It tells something that you already know or felt. So yeah, Burning is among one of them. And what I'm interested now is for any of the viewers. I don't know how many people are going to listen to it, but still, if you watch the movie, yeah, of course, the soundtrack is really nice. I think soundtrack also contributed a lot to this whole atmosphere of the movie. Maybe we can talk about this in another episode as well. If I come up with something new or some new thoughts. So if you have something you want to say or share about the movie, something different or something you might not disagree, you can share it in the comments. Feel free to share it. And I have written an article about it 2 years ago in our own website, of course, solaceInCinemas.com. You can read there. The site is still under construction. If you like our episodes and want to be the part of it, it's a visual. Everyone is welcome in it. It's a community. We want to make it a community platform. So thank you for if you listen listen to this episode. Are still with me now, right now. Thanks a lot for hearing my mumble jumble about this movie. I hope it made sense. But even if it doesn't, it was worth a try. I wanted to just share about it, and I hope to listen from you as well. Thank you a lot. I'll see you on the next episode. Solace in Cinemas. Have a good day, everyone.